I didn't realize Australia was different from America right away. At first, everything felt familiar enough. English signs everywhere, similar stores lining the streets, similar faces passing by. My brain relaxed too quickly, slipping into autopilot like it does anywhere that looks like home. Then one small moment cracked that illusion wide open. I was standing in public, surrounded by strangers at a busy outdoor market, and I noticed something missing, something I couldn't name at first. No tension hanging in the air. No edge to people's movements. No one watching anyone else too closely, calculating distance and threat level. That absence felt louder than any noise could. It was like walking into a room where music had been playing for hours and suddenly realizing it stopped. You don't notice the sound until the silence hits you. I stood there feeling completely exposed, vulnerable in a way I hadn't felt since I was a kid. My hands didn't know what to do. My eyes didn't know where to look. Every instinct I had developed over decades was suddenly useless. I was waiting for something to happen, for someone to break the calm, for reality to snap back into the shape I understood. But nothing came. People just kept moving, talking, laughing, existing, without that underlying current of wariness I had always assumed was universal. That's when I knew something fundamental was different here. In America, public space feels shared but heavily guarded. Everyone carries invisible rules shaped by fear, headlines, and hard-learned caution. You keep your distance. You don't make eye contact too long. You assume nothing about anyone's intentions. It's survival code, written so deep you forget it's even there. In Australia, public space felt genuinely open, without any visible effort. People stood closer without discomfort. Conversations happened between strangers without suspicion or that defensive edge. Kids ran ahead of their parents without anyone panicking. My body reacted before my thoughts could catch up. I felt naked at first, like I had forgotten to wear armor I put on every single day back home without thinking about it. My shoulders stayed tense for weeks, waiting for the moment everything would prove I was right to be careful, waiting for someone to shatter the illusion. But that moment never came. Day after day, life just continued being easier, lighter. People helped each other with directions, held doors longer than necessary, smiled without agenda. It wasn't performance. It wasn't Midwest nice or Southern hospitality where there's always a calculation underneath. This was just baseline behavior, the default setting. And that default was so far from what I knew that it made me question everything I thought was normal about being human in a society. The moment hit hardest when nothing went wrong. No conflict brewing, no threat materializing, no warning signs I had to interpret and respond to. Life just moved smoothly without resistance, like water finding its path. In America, smooth moments feel temporary, like the calm before something breaks. You enjoy them, but you don't trust them. You keep one eye open. Here in Australia, those moments felt normal, expected even. That realization unsettled me more than danger ever could, because it forced a question I had never asked myself before. Why did calm feel so unfamiliar to me? Why did peace feel like a warning sign instead of the goal? I started replaying my life back home and seeing it differently. The way I planned routes based on safety, the way I checked my surroundings constantly, the way I rehearsed scenarios that never happened, the way I held my keys, the way I locked my car, the way I avoided certain places, certain times, certain situations without even thinking about why anymore. It had all become so automatic that I thought that was just being an adult, just being responsible, just being smart. But standing here in Melbourne on a random Tuesday afternoon, watching life happen without all that weight, I realized something darker. I had been living in a constant state of low-grade fear for so long that I had forgotten what normal actually felt like. I started paying real attention after that, watching how people moved through the world here. People trusted systems without obsessing over them. Rules existed but didn't dominate every interaction or decision. Respect replaced enforcement in small daily exchanges. Nobody was performing safety. Nobody was proving anything. I realized I was slowly unlearning habits built from constant alertness over 30-plus years, habits so deep they felt like personality traits. Australia didn't demand my attention the way America always had. It allowed my attention to rest, to wander, to focus on things that actually mattered to me instead of things that might hurt me. I stopped checking my blind spots every few seconds. I stopped positioning myself near exits. I stopped cataloging who was around me and what they might do. My jaw unclenched, my fists uncurled. I started sleeping through the night without waking up to check if I locked the door. These small changes added up to something massive. I had energy I didn't know I was missing, mental space I had forgotten existed.
I could think about projects, relationships, ideas, dreams, instead of just managing an endless stream of what-ifs and worst-case scenarios. That shift wasn't subtle once I recognized it. It was the difference between living and just surviving, and I hadn't known I was only surviving until I finally started living.
That shift revealed something I had never considered before: how deeply culture programs your nervous system. America taught me constant readiness. Always be prepared, always be aware, always be 3 steps ahead of danger. That's not paranoia, that's common sense. That's what responsible people do. Australia modeled something completely different: ease, trust, the assumption that today would probably be fine, and if it wasn't, people would handle it together. Neither culture announced itself with signs or speeches. One simply felt lighter on your bones, in your chest, behind your eyes. I noticed my thoughts slowed down. The constant chatter of anxiety and calculation quieted to a whisper. My reactions softened to situations that would have sent me into defensive mode back home. I stopped anticipating problems before they existed, stopped running simulations of disaster in my head during every quiet moment. That mental bandwidth opened up, and suddenly I was noticing things I had ignored for years: the way light hit buildings at sunset, the smell of coffee shops, the rhythm of conversations, the sound of people laughing without looking over their shoulders. I was present in my own life for the first time in decades, not watching it happen while simultaneously planning my escape routes, just being in it, participating, feeling it. That presence changed everything about how I experienced being alive, and made me realize how much of my life I had spent braced for impact. This difference had nothing to do with perfection. Australia has problems. Every country does. It came from something else entirely: pace, trust, shared expectations that people built together over time. People assumed cooperation instead of conflict as the starting point. That assumption shaped everything from eye contact to how silence felt between strangers. In America, silence feels tense, loaded, like something's about to happen. Here, silence just felt like quiet, nothing more, nothing less. I realized how rare that simplicity felt to me, how much I had learned to read meaning into everything, to search for hidden threats in neutral moments. Eye contact back home could mean challenge, aggression, interest, warning. Here, it usually just meant acknowledgement, a simple human recognition, nothing complicated, no subtext to decode. That simplicity extended everywhere. Conversations didn't escalate. Disagreements didn't become battles. People gave each other space to be wrong, to change their minds, to exist imperfectly without judgment turning into confrontation. I watched people resolve conflicts in public without raised voices or posturing, just talking, just listening, just working it out like adults who assumed the other person was fundamentally decent. That assumption was the key. It created a completely different social fabric, one where my guard could finally come down, where I could be vulnerable without being stupid, where trust wasn't naive, it was just the baseline. That was the moment I truly understood Australia wasn't like America. Not better, not worse, just different at a level you feel in your body before your brain can find words for it. Different in your breathing, different in your shoulders, different in how you sleep. Once you notice it, you never stop seeing it. You can't unsee it. It follows you everywhere. I'd go to the grocery store and notice I wasn't rushing, wasn't scanning the parking lot, wasn't checking who was behind me in line. I'd sit at a cafe and realize I had chosen my seat based on comfort instead of tactical advantage. I'd walk at night and catch myself feeling calm instead of alert. Each of these moments reminded me that I was living differently now, that something fundamental had shifted in how I moved through the world. And with that awareness came a harder truth. I couldn't go back to not knowing. Couldn't pretend the weight I carried before was necessary or normal. Couldn't unsee how much energy I had spent just managing fear disguised as wisdom. This wasn't about Australia being paradise. It was about recognizing that the intensity I lived with before wasn't inevitable, that there were other ways to build a society, other ways to treat strangers, other ways to exist together. And once you know that in your bones, once you feel that difference, everything changes. Your standards change, your expectations change, you change, and there's no going back.